Hello everyone. I wanted to try something a bit different for this channel this year, so I'm going to be trying two different things. The first is to actually edit the content I'm putting out. This video was edited over the course of a week because I had to learn the basics and find software that I'm comfortable using. Hopefully, as time goes on, I'll be able to make these videos a bit more flashy for y'all, but as of now, expect this kind of basic quality. The second thing I want to try is consistency, which isn't something I ever thought I'd say, because I kind of just in the past would upload when I felt like it. My current plan involves uploading at least one video a month, and if I have the ability to, I will try and do more. Today, I'm going to be going over my 15 favorite weapons from the Calamity mod. Brainstorm has been out for about 2 months now, and that has given me more than enough time to sit down and sift through the many reworks that it has brought us. And now that I am a bit more accustomed with what is the current version of Calamity, I can now confidently give you a rundown of each weapon and why I like each of these 15 so much. Before we begin, I don't normally plug myself in these videos, let alone use my voice too often, but I have heard that it actually helps out any channel that does it quite a bit, so if you enjoy what I have here today, please leave a like and subscribe. I like doing this because it gives me an outlet to kind of vent information, or just speak my mind, really. So having a place where I can freely do that, it's very nice, and seeing that people enjoy what I have to say or what I want to do is all the better. At number 15, we have the Ontological Despoiler. This is a post-Ceaseless Void ranged weapon that serves as an upgrade to both the Arc Nova Diffuser and the Nullification Pistol. It has 2 modes, and you can swap between them by right-clicking. The first mode will fire either piercing lasers when half-charged, or an explosive at full charge. The second mode takes longer to charge, but fires homing projectiles at half-charge, and a beam at full charge. The charge time will become greater the more either mode is used in succession, so keeping DPS high with this weapon requires that you switch between the 2 modes frequently. The weapon serves as both a crowd control option and a single target option because of the properties I've just listed. It just takes some thought to make it work properly. I like this weapon for a pretty simple reason. I liked the Arc Nova Diffuser when that first came out, and I also was a big fan of the Nullification Pistol rework. It didn't make the list though because I found that this weapon just encompassed everything those two did, but it did it better. Overall, on this list, this is one of the few I actually recommend you try out in a playthrough, as it'll be able to carry you for a lot of the game. You can see here I'm using it for Poltergeist, and it's doing pretty well despite being a few tiers behind. At number 14, we have the Order Bringer. This is a post-Yarn sword that releases a wave and homing stars with every swing. It's a very simple and easy-to-use option for XMX or Calamitous. A fun fact, this weapon's current function is actually based on the old Arc of the Cosmos prior to its rework in 1.5.1. It was a popular option for no-hitters back in the day because, despite its lower DPS, it had really good homing, which meant you could focus more on dodging. I did play Calamity back then, and the Arc of the Cosmos, while I couldn't see eye to eye with it because I couldn't understand the whole gimmick of different seasons giving you different projectile behaviors, I did know that this was something that a lot of people liked, even though I myself never used it. But now its old function's back without all that goopy sappy stuff, and I can confidently say it's one of the better weapons that I've ever actually seen. Its quality is pretty great. And the reason I like it so much is that it's nostalgic, but it's got a modern finish to it that really makes it stand out from anything that would just bring the Arc of the Cosmos back. For the 13th weapon, I have chosen the Super Radiant Slaughterer. This is a post-Moonlord ranged upgrade to the Buzzkill, but also to the Speed Blaster. Much like those two, it does not consume ammo and does not have any special ammo for it. Holding left click will rev up a saw, which will gain range, piercing, and damage the longer you rev it for, from anywhere from 100% damage to 500% of the original damage. When you release the mouse button, it will fire the saw, inheriting the properties that it gained depending on how long you charged it for. These are very much like the ones from the Buzzkill, its downgrade, and will bounce off surfaces and ricochet everywhere to keep damage high. However, unlike the Buzzkill, these have a unique property in that they will fire additional projectiles when returning from a bounce, depending on whether or not if they hit something during their travel. Right-clicking will fire a stationary saw towards the cursor that has the same properties. And right-clicking again will actually propel you in the direction that you are moving, and a feature inherited from the Speed Blaster. This dash will also temporarily cause all your saws to follow the cursor, which means that you can kind of direct them if you wish. It's a very fun and unique take on a ranged weapon, and despite it feeling more like a melee weapon, it fits right at home in a lot of ranger loadouts, and I see why. Any closed-off arena benefits a lot from this thing. Plus, I was one of some amount of people who actually saw the original concept art, and seeing it go from that to a fully fledged weapon makes it very hard to dislike, for me at least. At number 12, we have the Astral Pike. For anyone familiar with the old brand of the channel, this may not be such a surprise. For anyone who's tuning in for the first time or just isn't aware, I used to go by It's the Astral King because of my obsession with the Astral Infection biome. The enemies, the music, the bosses, even just the general aesthetic is all something that I really enjoy about the biome. It's easily my favorite biome in all of modded Terraria. With that tangent out of the way, the Astral Pike is a post-lunatic cultist weapon, and it is a true melee spear, which seems kind of simple and maybe a bit boring, but it does have some depth to it, as any critical hits with this weapon will summon a swarm of astral stars that have pretty good homing and deal high damage. It's also an older weapon, which is why I gravitate towards it so much. Despite its simplicity, it's very fun to use, and because it's a true melee weapon, defense-oriented setups help it a lot. I can't recommend this for everyone, but for those of you who want to try something new for, say, the Moonlord fight, this is definitely a really valid option. It's also one of the few astral weapons left after Brainstorm purged them all, so it gets the spot as opposed to something like the Astral Bow or Blade, which wouldn't have gotten it anyway. Number 11 goes to Triactus' True Paladinian Mage Hammer of Might, or TPMHOM. To quote a fellow Terraria YouTuber, big hammer, me throw, many particles, enemy die, me happy. That quote comes from a little before its rework, which just merged it with the other hammers in the mod, so to give you a rundown of its function, it'll throw a heavy gravity-affected hammer that will return on hit. It'll create a flare on every hit, up to 3, which will orbit the most recently hit target. The 4th hit will summon hammers from the flares, which will deliver a powerful AoE strike. It's a simple and very iconic weapon to many people, and it had to have a spot somewhere on this list. The 10th weapon I've chosen is the Hive, a post-Plaguebringer Goliath rocket launcher that charges up 4 missiles. The spread will be reduced and the distance they will travel will increase further the longer it's charged. Upon projectile death, they will release 2 homing bees each, resulting in about 8 8 bees that will home into the nearest target. At full charge, or 1.5 seconds, a nuke will be fired instead, indicated by an audio cue. It has a very large blast radius and will erupt into more of the same bees. It is honestly a really good weapon, and I actually can't recommend it enough. The footage you're seeing here is me fighting 2 fishhorn with it, and a funny story is that until recording this, I actually didn't know that the Hive's projectiles deal increased damage to Duke. So it's actually a better pick than you might think. This section's kind of brief because there isn't much to say other than what I've stated. But the weapon feels good to use, and it's very satisfying when you land a nuke on something. Ravager or Duke, as mentioned before, are great targets for this thing, as they're fought around the tier of Plague Marine Goliath, thus your damage will be pretty on tier, and maybe higher. At number 9, we have the Dragon's Breath, a flamethrower dropped by Yarn. It fires large fireballs that pierce infinitely, and its fire rate increases the longer the weapon's used. At one point, a cartridge will be injected into the weapon, and a singular stream of fire will be fired instead. This does not pierce, but deals much higher damage than the fireballs prior. When the beam ends, the cartridge will be visually ejected, and the weapon will return to normal fire rate. It's a very solid option for Exomex, especially Ares and Thanatos, where the fireballs can really use their piercing to your advantage, since both of those bosses have multiple segments that can be hit at once. I like this thing because it's really fun to use, and also because you can see the cartridge eject after the beam. Out of all the weapons on this list, this is actually one of the ones I recommend the most. It has higher than normal DPS if used correctly, and can work in your favor against Escal or Exomex depending on whether or not you use it correctly. The Legion of Celestia is my 8th favorite, formerly the Elemental Axe. It's a really simple summon, but it is very eye-catching with its new design, and it also only takes up 1 minion slot. I personally use this as my summon for free damage up until the Cosmo Lamp. Since its crafting tree is pretty easy to follow throughout the entire game as you're progressing with your main class. Just grind out a little bit harder and you should have all the summon weapons on the side needed to make this. And that's not to discredit it either. All the summon weapons used to make it are also really viable as free damage. Even when you're just playing Summoner, this is just a really good weapon, and is supposed to rival the Flowers of Mortality, which it does pretty well. You can see in my footage here, having multiple of them makes them really strong. It's an older weapon, but that's why I like it so much. It's managed to stay reliable for so many years, and hasn't lost its original charm. At number 7, we have Kingsbane, a post-Yarn range weapon which I don't think needs any introduction. It is a standout option for rangers, considering its fast rate of fire and decent damage, as well as its main gimmick. Holding the mouse button will cause it to rev up before firing whatever bullet you have in your top ammo slot, at a really rapid rate of fire, which is a given considering this is a minigun. After you stop firing, however, it will push you back with recoil, but fire 50 auric bullets, inflicting the auric rebuke debuff and having very strong homing. Its damage per second can be on the lower end compared to other ranged options, but don't let that diminish your experience with it. If I can have fun with it, so can you. Taking the spot of number 6, we have the Event Horizon, the only magic weapon on this list. And it's my favorite magic weapon because of that. It summons a ring of stars that, after a little movement, begin to home and create lingering black holes on hit to deal extra damage. A little note is that I have a VFX Plus add-on that supports Calamity weapons on for this footage here, which I will leave a link to the Steam page of in the description, so you can make your weapons look as flashy as mine. It normally does not look this good. I have a pretty simple reason for liking this. I've always been a big fan of astronomy, astrology, and anything related to space, so seeing a weapon that represented a event horizon, one of my favorite astronomical phenomena, was hard to ignore, and it has become my favorite magic weapon for that reason. Number 5 is Hellkite, which got reworked recently and is now one of my favorite melee weapons ever. You may have seen some people messing around with the new True Melee reworks, and to put it simply, many of the True Melee swords have been reworked to be more heavy feeling in the player's hands, with unique swing animations and much greater ranges. Hellkite is no exception to that rule, and thus has been reworked into the monstrosity you see before you. It excels at both crowd control and boss fights, and this one specifically allows you to charge it up with a right click, very similar to the Holy Collider. This one just strikes me with its color palette and design. It feels heavy in a way that I can't put into words. Maybe it's the after effects on the slashes, but it speaks to me in a way that none of the other True Melee swords do, and for that it gets a spot up here. At number 4, we have a True Melee weapon that needs absolutely no introduction or reasoning for my liking of it, the Murasama. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it will swing a short-range blade in front of you in a 3-swing combo, the third being larger and dealing more damage than the prior two. I really don't think I need to explain why I like it so much, as I'm sure many of you watching this also feel the same way about it. Something to note, expect this to get a full overhaul in the future, being usable starting from post-Moonlord up to the end of the game, complete with special abilities as you progress, and many, many Shimmer variants. Seriously, I really can't put into words why this weapon's here. It's almost common sense. We're down to the final 3 now, and for number 3 we have Ares Exoskeleton, my favorite summon weapon in the mod. This is not only one of the best endgame weapons, but one of my favorites, without a doubt. Using it will open a panel allowing you to have up to 4 arms, each with a different weapon and function to them. Those being laser cannons, Tesla cannons, plasma cannons, and Gauss nukes. They behave very similarly to the ones found on Ares in actuality, just way less threatening and a lot smaller. Having any cannon out will also change the sprite of the player's chest plate, which is one of the catalysts for a bunch of vanity potential. It's just a shame there's no way to access it without the weapon. If somebody could get on that, that'd be amazing. Other than that, I don't really have any other gripes with the weapon. It's a really solid option and serves well. Exomech is also one of my favorite bosses ever, so having a weapon that lets you become an Exomech is obviously going to rank pretty high on a list like this. It is easily one of my favorites, not just in Calamity, but in all of modded Terraria, without a doubt. Out of all of the weapons in this mod, my favorite ranged weapon and my second favorite weapon overall is Animosity. It's for a surprisingly simple reason too. It's a shotgun, one that you can see the ejected shells of. It's kind of that simple, although it is a little more in depth. You see, this is a really, really good weapon, and anyone who's played Ranger will tell you so. Left-clicking will release a burst of bullets imbued with Brimstone magic, which obviously means that in addition to whatever debuff they would inflict, they will inflict Brimstone flames. Right-click will fire a sniper shot that has the same properties, just hits harder. One of my favorite combos for post-Planetary uses is Venom Bullets being paired with this. Using Venom Bullets will inflict 2 debuffs and make it an absolute force to be reckoned with. And now, we've hit my favorite weapon. What weapon could it be? Is it something heavy feeling? Is it a unique gun? Is it some sort of unique summon weapon? Is it the only rogue weapon on this list? No. It belongs to the Exoblade. When I first played Calamity, I had cheat sheet enabled before my playthrough, so I could make sure everything was working correctly. Even at a younger age, I still had that foresight that something was gonna go wrong. And I spawned an Exoblade and gave it a swing, and I said, wow, is this what modded weapons are like? I'm definitely gonna aim for this in my playthrough. And then, when the time came, I looked at the crafting tree. But instead of backing away and being overwhelmed by it, I fully committed. And in retrospect, while the results of that playthrough were a bit underwhelming, Exoblade itself not being a great weapon at the time, it still felt satisfying, and a younger me didn't really care that it didn't do as much as he had hoped. A while later, it got reworked. Left-clicking will swing a much heavier variant of the blade, releasing homing projectiles with it. Right-clicking will perform a lunge, kicking you back, and empowering your next swing, assuming you've hit something. This right-click ability can make it a true melee option in a sense. It is iconic, strong, and flashy, a good culmination of an average melee playthrough. All of this, combined with my love for heavy swords and bright colors, makes this my favorite weapon in the mod. And with that, I think we're pretty much wrapped up here. That was my 15 favorite, so leave a comment telling me what your favorite weapon in Calamity is. I'd love to hear it and why. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. See ya!